Okay, so thank you again for joining. And as we did yesterday, I'm going to begin by asking you to grab a pen and paper. It'll be an interactive session. There's a lot that we're going to share. I think you'll find it quite interesting. And then we're going to see how the discussion goes from there. So as I said, I'll try to speak for about an hour max. I've got my timings here. And then we'll open up for some Q&A as well. Okay, so let me share my slide and then we can go from there. Okay, so I believe everyone can see my slides, is that correct? Okay, now I was supposed to call the session, you are, I think, who you associate with. And I just thought I'm gonna try a slightly different angle in terms of the discussion, but it's the same subject matter. So you have tuned into the right Zoom session, do not worry. Okay, the first thing I'm going to ask is the following, because it's going to be interactive as we did before. And I have a question for you. And I'll tell you why I'm asking this. I mentioned this yesterday, how I like to try and do things from a different angle. I'd like a show of hands actually for this. How many of you in our movement, how many of you in Krishna consciousness have been to some class about association before? Let's be honest. How many of you have been to some association class before? Okay, now let's be honest, it's a popular topic, right? Everywhere you go in ISKCON, they're going to say something about association, the importance of association, etc. Now I'm curious. So on this slide, it says the normal approach. I'm going to ask you to share with me in the chat window, when you go to an ISKCON class about association, what's the stuff that you normally hear? Just put it in the chat window. What's the stuff that normally comes up when it's an ISKCON class on association? What kind of stuff do you hear? What kind of stuff do you, okay, association is important, everything. Associate people who do good deeds, okay. Anything else? Anything else? Okay, associate with people you want to be like, 6 loving exchanges, okay. Okay. So I want to just say at the beginning that I completely agree with you. This is exactly the same thing that I've heard for about 25 years as well. And it's valid. It is valid. There's no, it's completely valid. But we want to try something slightly different today. So what we're going to do today is we want to expand your horizons and we're going to do some reverse engineering, okay? We're going to talk about association, but we're going to talk about association in a slightly different way. So normally, you come to a class on association, as you said, all of these different ideas are there. They're going to talk about, you associate with certain people and that will affect the way that you are, etc., etc. So it's really how the association you keep is affecting you, okay? Make sense? Okay, now the reverse equation is what we're going to get into. And for the next few questions, I want you to write down your answers because we may ask you to share something in this area a bit later on, okay? So again, for the next few slides, I want you to really write down your answers. For the answers that you write down, please be as honest as possible, okay? Because you only will share anything you're comfortable in sharing, okay? So don't worry about what you write down now. It's really powerful if we do this as honestly and as openly as possible. So I'll give you a framing for this. So yes, normally in the session on association, in our movement, it's okay, you're a devotee, these are the people you associate with, and if you associate with these type of people, this is what you'll become. We're going to flip the script today. What I want to know is about, or what we're going to tune into, is about the association that you give, okay? What we're going to look into is what other people become when they associate with you, okay? And we're going to start the journey here. So question number 1, what would you like most about the world if everyone was like you, okay? What would be the most happening thing about planet Earth if every single living entity on planet Earth was just like you? Okay, question number 1. I'll give you a few seconds. I don't want you to overthink this. I just want you to let it come from the heart. And don't give me some ISKCON humility. I want an honest answer. If you think you're a fantastic person, you've got great singing skills, you're a great kirtaneer, you've got a great voice, you're just the world's best, friend, whatever it is, put it down, okay? Let yourself go, okay? So number one, what would you like most about the world if everyone was like you? Okay. And then let's go on to question number two. Let's look at the dark side. What would frustrate you most about the world if everyone on the planet was like you? Okay. Be as honest as possible. What would frustrate you most about the world if everyone on planet Earth was just like you? Okay. And then the third question, what qualities would you want your children to have? Okay. Even if you have children right now, let's say they're young, growing up, whatever, just think forward down the line. And for this one, I want you to list 3 key qualities. Think about this in the future, right? Even if, for example, you're thinking about remaining celibate, just bear with me for a while. For this session, imagine if you were going to have children in the future, what are 3 of the key qualities that you would want your children to have? Okay, put that down for me. Okay. And when you've put your answer to this, all I'd like you to do is raise your icon, like the hand, the thumbs up, or any icon, just to show, okay, done that. Okay, we want to go this journey together, step by step. So when you write,
Bhuta Bhavana, Prabhu, I think you just muted yourself.
oh, okay. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, Prabhu, thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, so there's a bit more to this. So we've answered 3 questions. What would I like most about the world if everyone was like me? Number 2, what would frustrate me the most if everyone was like me? And number 3, 3 qualities that you would want your children to have. Okay, number 4, okay, write down number 4. And for number 4, we're going to do something slightly different. I want you to write down your favorite color. Okay, just write down your favorite color. Nice and simple. Just what's your favorite color? Write that down. And then put a dash. Next to your favorite color, write down 3 words that you would use to describe your favorite color. Okay, so that's number 4. You put down your favorite color, and next to that, 3 words that you would use to describe your favorite color. Okay, so we're going to take it a step further. So I'm going to come back to those 3 statements or 4 statements at a particular point, but we're going to take it one step further. I'm going to introduce you to this. So one of the things that we do at work, and maybe 1 or 2 of you will be familiar with this, is that we use what we call an empathy map. Okay, so the way this works is an empathy map is something that they use to work out products and services. So let's say, for example, Apple, the company, was going to launch a new product. They would create an empathy map, and in the center of the map, they would put their audience or their customer, the particular persona that represents the customers that they're trying to reach with that product. Then what they would do is they would think, okay, if the customer's in the center and we gave him or her our product, what would they be seeing? What would stand out to them in terms of our product? What would they be saying and doing about our product? How would they be thinking and feeling about our product? What would they be hearing about our product? Now, the empathy map is a very powerful technique. I was working with some of my God family, and we were working on the disappearance celebration of my spiritual master. It happened earlier this year. And, many ideas about what we should do, how we should do it, etc. And I pointed out to them something that I'd read in my spiritual master's leadership book. And he was talking about how when you're leading, what makes your leadership really successful is to put the people that you're leading, the people that you're trying to serve, in the center. And then when you put them in the center, then you start to think and you design your project around them. And what this means practically is you start to think, okay, so we're doing this disappearance celebration, right? Where the people who are going to come, where are they in their spiritual life? Okay, that's one thing. Where do they need to go in their spiritual life? What would inspire them in their spiritual life? You try to really put them in the center. You meditate on them and you design your service accordingly. And it's interesting. Many years ago, we were working on a youth outreach program in central London, in our temple, Radha Londonishvara. And there was a lady from Mumbai. I think her name was Suhana. So she was studying a master's, and it was around advertising, graphic design, all of these different things. And she came to the temple, and we got her to help us with some of the posters and the designs. And I showed her the adverts, all the posters for all the different programs that were being run at that time. And I asked her, what do you think about the posters, everything like that? She said something very interesting to me. She said, all of the posters in this temple, they all break all the laws of advertising and promotion. Right? She explained that all the posters, they're all badly designed. I gave you one example. She said, for example, when you design a poster, in a good poster, the imagery and the wording should never conflict, right? You should never be struggling to figure out immediately what's on offer, because people are bombarded with so much advertising that they have this term called cognitive load. And that is because we're overwhelmed with advertising all the time. If I can't figure out what you're trying to sell me in 2 seconds, I'll switch off, because I haven't got the time and the mental capacity to figure out, this process doesn't make sense. Like, what are they trying to say? What are they trying to do? It was very interesting. And it really brought home this concept that the way she'd been trained to do advertising and promotions was to really put the person that she was trying to serve, the people, the audience he was trying to attract, to put them right into the center, right? So if we do this poster, how will it be perceived by them? What stands out to them? Will they be able to understand it, right? What's the most important part of the poster that they need to see first? For example, when I was, many years ago, before I became a devotee, when I was looking into business and all of these different things, I remember reading a book, and it said the most important word in all advertising is a 4-letter word. The 4-letter word is F-R-E-E. If people see on any advert the word free, immediately it grabs their attention, right? Because, oh my God, I'm getting something for nothing. Where exactly what do I need to do? What form do I need to fill in? Now, the reason I'm talking about this is because it's funny. In our movement, we often fail to do this. Often when we plan something, we put who in the center? Just one or two of you just drop me a word. Who do we tend to put in the center when we're designing something? Okay, so Ravi says Krishna. That's interesting. Okay, any other taking? That's interesting. Usually it's ourselves. Usually we will design a program as something that works for us. We are not necessarily consciously thinking about the audience that we're trying to attract, what their needs are, what's going to inspire them, what's going to attract them, where they are on their journey, and what's the next step for them. You see? And therefore, and so what my spiritual master was writing in the Leadership 1 book, he was saying that many projects fail for this reason, because we're not meditating on the audience, we're meditating on ourselves. Now, it's a little sensitive or a little subtle. Sometimes we get away with it, right? And the way it works is, let's say that I myself am representative of the needs, interests, and concerns of my audience. So I've actually designed the program based on what I like, but by chance, it happens to be the same thing that they're going to like as well. So I get away with it. But in many cases, because we don't design it according to our audience, then they don't come. And it's like, but it's a Krishna conscious program, man. Like, how come the devotees just don't cooperate? It's like, yeah, but you designed it for yourself. You designed the program, the timing of it, the cost, the subjects, everything. It was all about me. Now, the most powerful and the most interesting thing I find about this whole thing is when we do these things, we're often doing it unconsciously. We often don't realize it. It's unconscious. Therefore, Prabhupada says, Atmavan Manyate Jagat. Who's heard that term before? What does that mean? Prabhupada says, Atmavan Manyate Jagat. I know someone on the line will have heard that before and knows what that means. What does that mean? Atmavan Manyate Jagat. Any ideas? Because if not, I will just tell you. Okay. It's a statement from Prabhupada. He would often say this. He says, everyone sees the world from their own perspective. You know? It's one of the subtle things that happen often in our consciousness until we become more advanced. We see everything from our perspective. Like, I can't believe they didn't know the answer to that question. Like, I know the answer to that question. You know, you hear people say things like that, you know? Well, I can't believe people, you know, I can do it. Why can't they? It's like as if because I can do it, suddenly everyone else should be able to do it because, of course, everyone's like me. It's a very counterintuitive thing, but the sensitive thing about it is that these things are unconscious patterns. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use this in a different way. So this idea, we recognize that by default in the material world, we often put ourselves in the center. But now we're going to get some more insight. We're going to try and do what we call a cognitive lab. So we're going to do an experiment, a thought experiment. I want you to imagine that the people who've known you best over this period of time, over, let's say, your life so far, I want you to put them in the center for this next exercise. Okay, so it could be friends, family, husband, wife, partner, whatever it is. I want you to put them in the center for this next exercise, okay? And I'm going to ask you to answer another, let's say 3 questions. And for these ones, I want you to say A, B, and C. Okay, so let's do this. So the first one, A, if I had an interview right now with your friends and family, whichever people or groups of people you feel know you best, and if I said to them, what are the best qualities, what's best about being friends with this devotee, right? So if I put Abe's friends and family in the center, and I said to them, what do you admire most about Abe? What are the qualities, behaviors, and characteristics that you feel are Abe's best qualities and characteristics? For A, write down what they would say about you. And again, be as honest as possible. It's a thought experiment. You're trying to imagine what they would say about you. Okay? So I put them in the center of the empathy map, and it's how they're perceiving you. It's not how you are. Right now, we're not looking at how you are. I want to know how you come across. Okay? I want you to try and think, what would they honestly say about how they perceive me, which means how I'm coming across to others. Okay? That's A. B, same group of people in the center. If I said to them, what do you think are, let's say, a couple of things that you think are the most important thing for, I don't know, Bhuta Bhavana, or for Ananda Madhava, or for Radha Bhakti, or Malvika, well, whoever we're talking about, whoever you are, if I had those people who know you best, and I was interviewing them, and I said to them, what do you think are the most significant things that this person needs to work on in order to progress in life, and especially on their spiritual journey? What would they say? Put that down. That's B. Okay, write that down. So try and put yourself in their shoes. Imagine what they would say. And carrying on in the mood that we did yesterday, your homework also is I would like you to find out from them. It'll be an interesting experiment to see how aligned your perception of what they would say actually aligns with what they would tell you themselves directly. Okay? So that's some homework for you. You've written down what you think that they would say about the things that they like or admire most about you, and the things that they think are most significant for you to work on in order to progress in life in general, and especially progress in your spiritual life. Okay? So you've got those down. So right now, you've got about 6 things, 6 points that you've kind of thought about, okay? And again, this is about association, but we're really focusing, and we'll touch upon the other side a bit later on, but we're focusing on the influence and the association that you bring to the world, okay? So the reason why we're doing this, let's make it very personal. I was thinking about my parents, and I was thinking about the way my parents behave. And I was understanding, okay, law of karma. I've been given these particular parents for a particular reason. I was thinking about my life in general, the type of people who come into my life, the type of friends, etc. And I was understanding again, I was trying to think, what are some of the patterns that I see? And I could understand something very significant. I could understand that the types of patterns that I see in my life, the type of association I receive, it also is in some way, shape, or form a clue or an indication of the type of association that I've been for other people in my past. And that past could be the distant past, past lives, etc. But definitely something about the environment and the association I have now, we understand there are no accidents. So what I've been also has an influence upon what I'm experiencing. There's a wonderful statement in Niti, and the statement, Chanakya says, and I love it because it's just so short but powerful. He says, fate follows action. 3 words. Right? Fate follows action. Now that statement's very interesting because it marries the statement that Bhishma Dev made to Yudhisthira on the Battle of Kurukshetra before he left the world. He said that the king is primarily a person of action as opposed to destiny, meaning that someone who has the mindset of a leader, they're not just reactive to whatever's happening in their lives. Someone who has a mindset of a leader, one of the thought patterns which indicates someone who's a leader is that the person tends to be proactive. They tend to be thinking, okay, what can I do, rather than spending their life just responding and reacting to what everyone else is doing, either doing to them or doing in their own lives. So we've got these 6 factors. 6 factors in terms of you doing an analysis of the kind of association that you may be giving or you may have given at this time, okay? So when we understand the association we give, that can also be a clue, because fate follows action. So the association is a type of action. I've behaved a certain way, or I tend to behave a certain way towards the people around me. And it's so interesting. In one book I was reading, Spiritual Warrior 2, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was saying that there are some people who get a lot of love and affection, right? And then he goes on to explain, why is that? He says, oftentimes, those people who get a lot of love and affection, if you study their lives very carefully, you'll see that that's exactly the kind of energy that they give out themselves. And I thought, that's interesting. Because often we look at it in terms of, these people are bad association, they need to change, man. But I'm thinking, let's look at it the other way. What energy am I giving out? Because according to what I give out, that's also gonna determine something about my future. Something very significant about the kind of energy that I'm going to receive in my own life. Okay? So this is spiritual social engineering, okay? Now you've got 6 things that you've spoken about. Let's just go back a second. You've got 6 things that you've spoken about. What would you like the most about the world if everyone was like you? Then, what would most frustrate you about the world if everyone was like you? Number 3, qualities that you would want your children to have. Now, I'm going to pause there. Any answers in the chat window? Why do you think I asked you this question? What are we trying to get at when we look at the qualities we would like our future children to have? I'd like 1 or 2 answers in the chat window. Why would we possibly ask you to think about that particular question? What do you think I could be getting at? Okay, okay, could be that we want those to have the qualities in ourselves. Okay, you can't give or expect what you don't have. Let me just pause. So just pause on this 1 second. I'm gonna go to, let's see. Let's see. I can't see who actually wrote that because I can't access it. But the person who wrote, you can't give the qualities that you yourselves don't have. Who wrote that, please?
Raseshwar.
Raseshwar, I'm going to ask you to take off the audio, and I just want you to just like literally 1 or 2 minutes. Can you expand on that, because this is exactly what I'm getting at. What made you say that?
Because most of the times we want good things for our children, but we may not necessarily have them ourselves.
And what's the problem with that though? If I'm a parent, I want my children to have all of these wonderful qualities, but I myself don't have those qualities. What could be the issue?
I mean, the issue is that if we want what we want to see in others, we first must work on it ourselves to have it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's interesting, for many of us, we will have seen this even in our own interactions with our own seniors or parents. So some friends of mine had a child. The child's actually a few years old now, but the mother was telling me, she was saying that the fact that she had a child, it was one of her strongest impetuses to work on herself, because she was super aware that if she didn't work on herself, even if she doesn't want it to happen, some of her weaknesses, some of her deficiencies would play out into her child. And I thought that's an incredible point, because that child is going to interact with us and they're going to pick up what we are. And you know, oftentimes parents think that they can hide certain things from their children, but it doesn't work like that. There's a whole science of how children shape personality and character. It's incredible. There's an article, it's in the ISKCON magazine for health. Hope this meets you in good health. It's a brilliant article on Ayurveda and children. In fact, there's a lot of information in those magazines on this. Now, one of the things which are important in the Vedic understanding of how children develop character is they pick up on the mood of the parents, right? So what the parents are, there's 2 categories. So my wife has studied this actually. So there's 2 things. One is the qualities and the characteristics that the parents have. That's absorbed by the child. The second is the quality and the characteristics that the parents endeavor to cultivate. So the qualities the parent has and the qualities that the parents try to develop, both qualities become absorbed by the child. So when the parents have those qualities, the child picks them up. When the parents endeavor for the qualities, then the child also will endeavor for those same qualities. Very, very powerful. So we wanted to share this because, again, linking this all to association, the qualities that you want to see in your children, if you want to see them in your children in the future, if we want to see them in our yatra, if we want to see them in humanity, one of the most powerful things to do is to use this understanding as a catalyst to really tune in to the significance and the need for us to work on them ourselves, right? Because what we are is going to play out into the environment. Some of you may work in a corporate environment. Let's be very real. Some of you, before you went into the corporate environment, you weren't so competitive. But because you went into that environment, and that environment has that competitive angle, You literally feel pushed to become like that just to survive. Can anyone relate to that? Or is it just me? Okay. So it's really powerful and really crucial that we understand this. And all I'm going to ask you to do in the first breakout, is reflect upon these points and just share with the people in your breakout room. You can share any of the answers. We gave you 6 things to think about. What's resonating for you? Okay. For some of you, it may be the thing that would most frustrate you if everyone was like you, because that can indicate something that I'm indirectly being made aware of, that's something that's not necessarily so healthy in myself, right? The thing that you bring, because it's also good to recognize the positives, right? Sometimes we need to celebrate the good qualities because it inspires us, it keeps us going. Okay, you know what? I think I do care sincerely about people. It's like, you know, it's a relief to think, yeah, I do honestly like to see people grow and develop, etc. For someone else, it could be a revelation that when you fall about children in the future, it's like, actually, you know what? That's amazing. I didn't realize it, but these are the things I want my children to have. And that could be an indicator that I need to work on some of these things myself. Whatever it is that stood out. You have 6 questions. We're going to ask you to go into the breakouts for about, let's say, 6-7 minutes, and then we'll come back. And all I like you to do is share what stood out for you, because all the things that you wrote down, they're all indicating something about the association that I give. Okay? We are what we associate with, but also what we give out is something that we're receiving. Sometimes people want to have these great relationships. My first question to people is, you want to have these great relationships. Are you a great person to relate with? You know? When I was thinking about this session, I was thinking about what happens in modern society. And it's such a poisonous thing that's happening in modern society. We have rights and we have responsibilities. Both are important. But when one becomes overplayed and the other is neglected, everything goes out of balance. And when I was thinking about rights and responsibilities, it occurred to me that, and Prabhupada speaks about this, he says, first deserve and then desire. So I was thinking, okay, I want to have these great relationships. I want to feel that I can get great interactions with people. So these are rights. These are the things that I would like to receive. But your rights are empowered by your responsibility. It is explained in scripture that when someone takes birth in the royal family, what it means is that in previous lives, they did a tremendous amount of charitable activity. So just like in the UK, the royal family, they're millionaires just by birth. But it's so interesting because they did so much charitable work in their previous life. Therefore, in this life, they gave so much previously, so that in this life, they receive so much. So your giving actually empowers you to receive. Your deserving, your qualification empowers you to then desire and get something. Your investment empowers you to withdraw. So your rights, your ability to receive something is empowered by your being responsible to behave that way and to give that energy yourself. So when it comes to association, if one of the key powerful principles is if I want this great association, then really what we're looking at is what can I be doing to be that wonderful association, or to be the best association that I can be for others, based upon all the gifts that Krishna, Guru, Prabhupada, the association of devotees, all the gifts that I've been given. How am I using it? I keep hearing this point, and I've heard it many times in lectures, you know, in our tradition, in our communities. Krishna looks to see what you do with what he's given you. So when Krishna sees that we're using what he's given us to the best of our ability, he gives us more. And I don't know about you, but I find that incredibly exciting. Because what it says to me is, if I try to be the best association that I can be for other people, then life is going to be incredible. If I try to be encouraging, kind, affectionate, understanding, compassionate in a real and wise way to others, then I know for a fact the end result is that my association is going to be continually more and more extraordinary and blissful, because Krishna sees, yes, I give you something, you share it compassionately, you share it sincerely, so I'm going to give you more. So let's empower ourselves. So let's have that conversation. We'll give you 7 minutes in your breakout groups. What did you learn? What resonated with you from these 6 questions that you considered, to think about the association that you are for other people? Over to the organizers to start the breakout. To do this, because we want to provide a catalyst. You see, everyone talks about changing the world. Everyone talks about changing the world. No one talks about changing themselves, you know? But in order to really make a lasting difference to the world, the journey starts with us. And I don't mean that in a cliched way. It's actually Shastric, and I'll explain what I mean. You can change the world in different modes. What you're exposed to most of the time in self-help is a doctrine of how to change the world in the mode of passion, where it's all about telling everyone else what they need to do, but not making a fundamental shift in myself. Now, what that will do is it can lead to some superficial change if you have the karma for it, okay? But eventually the whole thing will fall apart, because the mode of passion relates to superficiality. There's a different way of doing things. The different way of doing things is I try to change the world by working on myself. I try to change the world literally from the inside out. That is a process of change and improvement in the mode of goodness, because I carry the characteristics and the qualities that I want to inspire others to do, but I carry it consistently. I carry it consciously, and I carry it unconsciously. Now, what do I mean by unconsciously? Unconsciously means it's become part of my character, right? So, you know, and I'm going to ask for a show of hands. Let's be honest. Let's make it very honest. Again, we're family. How many of you have seen parents tell you one thing and act a different way? Has anyone ever seen that? Or is it just my parents? I'm happy to just say it's mine. Okay, isn't that interesting? Now, we also know from science that most communication is nonverbal. So let's just put these two things together. So we have an adult who's saying to their children, you should behave one way. And at the same time, the vast majority of their communication, which is nonverbal, is sending a different message. Incredible, but it doesn't stop there, right? So what they've done, they found that communication is about what, 7% of is the words, the content. Then more of that is the tone, right? More of that is the body language. And that's where modern psychology stops. But there's more, okay? So beyond the words used, beyond the tone used, beyond the body language, even more important and more encompassing than all of these is your lifestyle. Because think about it carefully. Content, tone, words, body language, they convey something, but your lifestyle contains all of these things, but it contains more. Your lifestyle contains how you spend your time. Your lifestyle contains who you associate with. Your lifestyle contains how you spend your money. So our life is the ultimate communication, okay? So when we work on ourselves and develop certain qualities, then that sends such a powerful communication about who I am, what I'm about, what I think is actually important, and it has the most powerful effect on helping the world to improve. Okay, so we wanted to do this to reinforce a catalyst. I'm very much into this idea, let's empower ourselves. I almost put a slide, and the slide was going to say, when you take the power, when you consider the power of responsibility, it gives you the full power to change your life. In other words, when you completely take the sense that I'm responsible for my life, you actually take back all the power to make a difference and to make an improvement. To the extent that we stay in a victim mentality, to that extent, you're literally saying everyone has the power to make me feel down or to make me feel good or bad, and you give your power away to other people, okay? So this is a consideration about the association that I give, knowing that what I give is also having a big impact upon what's going to happen to me in the future. There's a few other things before we open up for questions. So let's go to the slides again. So give me 1 second. Okay. So we've had some consideration about these points, and I was asked, and this is where I'm gonna share this now. I was asked, why did I ask you about the favorite color? Okay. Now this is also very important. This goes back to what we said earlier about the empathy map. And we said that in the empathy map of our lives, who do we usually and unconsciously put in the center of that map? Any answers? Who do we tend to put in the center of that empathy map in our day-to-day lives? Definitely ourselves. But it's so amazing. And the amazing thing is we're not even conscious of it. So the last thing I asked you to do, the favorite color and 3 words that you would use to describe it, it's an activity that may help you to put yourself in touch with something that you may not be conscious of. I'll explain this. That activity, and you may want to do this with friends and family in your own time. I asked you to put down your favorite color. I asked you to write down 3 words that will describe that favorite color. The 3 words that you used to describe your favorite color are meant to indicate, or can be, sometimes it doesn't quite work out like this, but they can be an indication of how you subconsciously think that other people perceive you. I just want a show of hands, anyone who thinks, okay, what you put down actually was an accurate indicator of how you think other people perceive you. Don't be shy. I'm just curious to see. Any show of hands, did anyone experience that what they put down actually, it's like, oh, that is actually how I think other people perceive me. Yeah, there are many different things that people can do which bring out certain understanding that we have, which is in our unconscious. A lot of our lives are lived unconsciously. And that's why, and this is another homework, right? That's why it's really important. Well, it's the same homework I gave you, but I want you to really take this seriously. I want you to go out to people who know you and make them feel comfortable, and then ask them, what do you think are the good qualities? What do you think I bring positively to relationship, friendship, etc.? And what do you think are the most important things that I could work on to progress my own life, and especially to progress my Krishna consciousness? I'm going to ask you to go to people who you trust, who you think will tell you the truth, okay? And make them feel comfortable. I had an interesting experience. So we had a couple, devotee couple, who came to dinner at our house. And the husband has a certain post. And we were having dinner, and in the post that he has, certain people were not giving funding in the way that he would have liked. And he made a comment. He said, if people don't want to give us funding for whatever reason, then they should just be honest and tell me that they don't give it, and just tell me to my face, and we can have an honest man-to-man conversation about this. And I was laughing because I was looking at what he was saying, and I realized he's sending mixed messages. So on the one hand, he's saying, if you're not prepared to give the funding, you should be honest and tell me why. But his entire nonverbal communication is saying, if you dare tell me the truth, I will literally kill you. And I was thinking, this is exactly why no one's going to tell you what they really think, because you're actually telling them not to tell you. So we want to make sure that everything is coherent. When we reach out to those people, then we have to ask in such a way that they feel comfortable to tell us the truth. Because, and this is really, I've seen this in my own life, and I'll be honest, it's one of the things that excite me about Krishna consciousness so much. You're not alone. And in your association, they're not alone. Krishna is in the heart, and he can inspire them to tell you things that will just take your life onto an increasingly amazing level. It's so incredible if we can have those real relationships where we can get real insights from the people who are around us, because they may see something about us that we don't see. Yeah? Does that make some sense? If you're up for doing this exercise, react. Just raise your thumb, raise your hand, raise something, just to let me know you're down with it, you're committed to doing it, and it's only for your own benefit, okay? So please do that, because I'm sure if you pray to Krishna before you do that, you may discover something amazing. Okay, let's move on, then we'll come on to questions. I'm going to share my slides, and then we're going to try to finish as close to time as possible. Okay, so let's move on. A few things around association, and that is, we want to really get into, and we'll just touch upon this. You contact the association. So you find those people who you feel that you want to build a connection with, but then you do this. Connection is not something that happens overnight. A lot of our relationships are not so strong, and the reason why they're not so strong is that we don't invest in the connection. We live in a social media culture, and therefore it's easy to be hypnotized. So I remember hearing again and again in different lectures that when you watch TV or go to the cinema, and we can say when you go onto social media, it puts the mind in an alpha state. In that alpha state, you are 5 times more receptive to whatever you're seeing, and it can actually go more easily into your unconscious mind. Now think about this. If we're bombarded with images of people, snapshots of their life where everyone looks happy, everyone looks well dressed, everyone else looks like they're having a great time, it's easy to start thinking, oh, everyone else seems to be happier than I am. You know, they have such a great life. You know, they've got so many friends. I've seen people on social media posing with people, smiling and laughing with people, and I know they hate that person. You know, in fact, that dude was just about ready to have a fight with the other person. But when you see the snapshot, it gives a completely different impression. So we have to really tune in to the power of good relationships. We won't have loads of friends, and that's okay, because to have friends means you have to have time and energy to build a relationship. So what you're looking for is a small number of quality relationships. Always look for quality over quantity, and you will do well. And when you contact, when you build the connection, then automatically you develop a higher consciousness. Yeah? When you build that connection with healthy association, automatically your consciousness will also be reinforced and improved. I want to go on to a few other points, and then we'll open up for questions. So I want to quickly run through this formula. If you remember nothing else from this seminar, if you just remember these 3 things, you can go back home, back to Godhead. Okay? This is a formula for complete success in spiritual life. Okay, let's go to the first one. So the pro formula, P-R-O. First one is pure devotion. So what you're looking to do in life is to associate with different forms of pure devotion. That means associating with pure devotees of the Lord, associating with the holy names of the Lord. It's another form of pure devotion. Associating with the deity of the Lord, another form of pure devotion. Associating with the Srimad Bhagavatam, another form of pure devotion. These are all carriers of pure devotion. So you're looking to have as much exposure to pure devotion as possible, but it doesn't stop there. Along with the exposure is a receptivity. So R stands for receptivity. Okay, so you have the opportunity to hear a class, but are you receptive? Okay, you can have 2 people in the same class. One person is really receptive. They're paying attention. They're tuning in. They're making notes. They're reflecting on what they're hearing. They try to apply it. Someone else in the class is literally thinking about the next time they can go clubbing, right? They're thinking about, you know, what they're going to do for lunch. So it's the same exposure to pure devotion, but different levels of receptivity. Okay? So these 2 things are really important. It's not just what you're exposed to. You can amplify the benefit by being more and more receptive to the right thing. Okay? Now there's a third factor. So P stands for pure devotion. R stands for receptivity. And these 2 are positives. You want to be more receptive, and you want to have more exposure to pure devotion. The third factor is a negative. Okay? You want to minimize offenses. You see, many devotees think that you've been around in Krishna consciousness the same amount as someone else, therefore everyone's equal. It's not like that. That's not how it works. Because in this formula, the progress you make is actually how much exposure you had to pure devotion, how receptive you were to that exposure, but minus offenses. And you'll see, and this is, again, we're family. Sometimes you see devotees who've been around for a long time and you think, how is it that this person's been around for so long and they're still badly behaved, they're rude, they're negative, they're critical, etc. And it's often to do with this last part. They had the exposure, they may or may not have been receptive, but they made these offenses. So it's just like going to a good university. So let's say you went to an Ivy League university. So let's say that Ivy League university represents pure devotion. So it's the highest level of education available. Okay, but you're there and your friends are there, but some people are more receptive in the class than others. Okay, so they both had the same classes, same tutor, same lectures, but one of them in the class was more receptive than the other. So that person is more expert in that subject. Now the third factor, offenses, right? So let's say that one of the students was also very critical of the teacher, always ignoring the teacher, being rude to the teacher. That's not going to lead to progress. So it's the pro formula. You're looking for these three things: pure devotion, receptivity, minus offenses. That determines how much you progress in your spiritual journey. Honest truth, I know many devotees and they think that Krishna consciousness is hard. It's actually, but they've misperceived it. It's not that it's hard. I know many devotees and they should have made a lot more advancement, but they were so damn offensive. So quick to criticize people. So quick to find fault in other people. So quick to look down on other people. And you know what the really scary thing is? They don't even realize that the offenses that they've made has slowed them down. Some of those devotees, they should be on such a high level of spiritual attainment, but because of the offenses, their spiritual life has been stagnant and they don't even realize it. Right? So don't become that guy or that girl. Okay, let's move on. So this is a quote from Bhagavatam, and this is a really powerful quote. So this is from 4th Canto, Chapter 8, text number 34. I'm going to read this to you because it's so fantastic, and I love the way that Prabhupada explains the purport. This is about how to associate, okay? So I'll read this out, and this is given by Narada Muni, and it gives some key clues, and this is how it is. And it also explains the benefit of doing this, and this is really key. When I first read this, I thought, wow, how come the devotees don't know about this? So it says, every man should act like this, every man or woman. When he meets a person more qualified than himself, he should be very pleased. When he meets someone less qualified than himself, he should be compassionate towards him. And when he meets someone equal to himself, he should make friendship with him. And look at the benefit. This is what Bhagavatam says directly. In this way, one is never affected by the threefold miseries of this material world. Now, it alludes to what we said yesterday. When you have the proper connections with seniors, people who are more advanced, proper connections with peers who are equally advanced, and proper connection with juniors who you're giving help to, it makes you more and more powerful and strong and resilient. You can get through everything because you have all three types of relationship. Now, it's even better than this. This is the purport by Prabhupada. You'll love this. Now, Prabhupada writes, and he keeps it so real. This is why I love this. Prabhupada says, generally, when we find someone more qualified than ourselves, we become envious of him. When we find someone less qualified, we deride him. And when we find someone equal, we become very proud of our activities. These are the causes of all material tribulations. The great sage Narada therefore advised that a devotee should act perfectly. Instead of being envious of a more qualified man, one should be jolly to receive him. Instead of being oppressive to a less qualified man, one should be compassionate towards him, just to raise him to the proper standard. And again, think about our theme. what I'm doing to other people is what's happening to me, okay? And when one meets an equal, instead of being proud of one's own activities before him, one should treat him as a friend. One should also have compassion for the people in general who are suffering due to forgetfulness of Krishna. These important functions will make one happy within this material world. Incredible, right? And this is direct Vyasadeva Srimad Bhagavatam. You will get a certain empowerment, and it's so interesting. When you see people who are great leaders, the empowerment to become a great leader comes by being a great follower. You see, when you're able to follow people sincerely, follow the right person in the right way sincerely, it actually empowers you to be a great leader. I remember hearing a class, it was incredible. And it's the same principle about parenting and children, about seniors and juniors. There was one Prabhupada disciple who gave a class. He told the youth, it was a youth retreat. He said, if you don't respect your parents and your seniors, he said, when you grow up, your own children will spit in your face and disrespect you the same way that you did to your own parents or your own seniors. And I thought, wow, it makes complete sense, because the way I'm treating my seniors is exactly how I'm going to be treated by my juniors when I'm senior to them. So it's in my own interest to behave properly in all three relationships. Now, it doesn't mean you should be naive. It doesn't mean you should be sentimental. It doesn't mean you should be a blind follower, but it means that we have respectful dealings within Vaishnava etiquette. And it's very, very powerful. It's the amazing thing about our teachings, and I just find it so incredible. Because Krishna is selfless, what you read in the scriptures and what you get in the teachings, Krishna's not telling you to follow these things. He's not telling us to follow these things for our benefit and for his benefit. Krishna's in the spiritual world with the gopis. He's having a great time. He's not unhappy, right? He's got no low self-esteem. There's no personality issues. He doesn't have to see a therapist, right? So when Krishna, because he's so loving, kind, and selfless, when he gives any direction, when his pure devotees are given direction, it's for our own happiness, for our own benefit, and it's literally for our own empowerment. It's so, I see people forget this all the time. They think that they're being nice to other people and they're doing the other person a favor. No, what you give out is what's coming to you. When we're behaving properly, we're setting our own lives up for success, independently of how other people treat us. If we behave properly, we're depositing a powerful and glorious future in our own destiny. Incredible. So something to think about there. Let's take things a step further. And this is, maybe we'll leave it on this point and then open up for questions. So I wanted to also address something that came up yesterday. So sometimes, and this is really important, sometimes we think that we have to become Krishna conscious by our effort. No, that's not true. It's not true. You will not become Krishna conscious by your own effort. And you know what's even more amazing? Krishna's not expecting you to become Krishna conscious by your own effort. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in the Madhurya Kadambini, he talks about this. He says there's two things, and I'm sure you've heard this before, effort and mercy. In the Damodar Leela, the two parts of rope which were too short, when Mother Yashoda tried to bind Krishna, those two parts of rope which are too short, they indicated effort and mercy. So what Krishna wants us to do is make the effort to take the medicine, and that medicine includes association of great devotees. And when we associate with great devotees, by their mercy, they give us that love of Godhead that they have within their own hearts. Now look at this verse, very important. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Now, in the verses after this, it also goes on to say that one who does this attains unalloyed happiness. So in spiritual life, most devotees don't, I'll be honest, Most of the devotees don't really understand our philosophy properly. Don't become that guy or that girl. It's a lot more powerful than you realize. The Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of Krishna. It's actually a deity. If you stay in regular touch with the Bhagavatam, read it and reflect on it regularly, it will transform you. And don't believe me. If you try it, if you even do it for a month regularly, you'll see it will change your consciousness. If you also serve the pure devotee, so you take instructions from advanced devotees, can we do some service for you? And you do some practical service, it will destroy all the anarthas. It's not that you, by your own power, have to get rid of all your anarthas. We don't even know all of the anarthas in the heart. It doesn't work like that. But it's the blessings and the gift of pure devotion, it comes from those pure advanced devotees who are pleased by our service. You don't have to do it all by your own effort. This is all about how we take the spiritual medicine as well as possible. And this association with Bhagavatam, you're not only associating with Krishna. There's a difference between the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is Krishna speaking. The Bhagavatam, one of the special qualities is in the Bhagavatam, you're hearing from Krishna's own devotees. And I'll end on this point. We don't agree that Krishna is the most powerful, right? We do not agree that God is the most powerful. That's not our philosophy. We say that there is one thing that is more powerful than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And those personalities who have that love, who are holding that within their heart, as we engage in service to them and as we associate with them, and they are also in the pages of the Bhagavatam, right? You can associate with Narada Muni, Shukadev Goswami, Sutta Goswami, the sages of Naimisharanya, every day, any day you like, by just touching the Bhagavatam and being in contact. So please, we have so many devotees who don't really understand the process and they struggle, and I'll be honest, it's heartbreaking. You think, wow, the fact that you're struggling like that means you don't understand the process. Working so hard, they didn't really understand how it works. This is how it works. This is how it actually works. It's all about the association. So we gave this pro formula, okay? Really take this to heart. Associating with different forms of pure devotion, being receptive in that association, and avoiding making offenses. Now, one thing I'll say about offenses doesn't mean that you become a blind sheep or you become foolish, okay? If you want to really understand how offenses work, there's a book called Radha Sunya. So we got all of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's books are on Amazon now. And there's a book called Radha Sunya, and it's all about the difference between making offenses and just having a genuine, open, honest conversation and interaction in Krishna consciousness. So if you want to study that and know where to draw the line, because people often don't know, that's a good book for that purpose. But anyway, we wanted to share some of these ideas with you, and we will hand over now to the organizers for any comments or questions.
Hare Krishna, Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu. That was just straight, like you're just, my vocabulary actually falls short and I get frustrated because it's like, how do you even describe what you just experienced? We did have some questions. There's one question from yesterday that we didn't get to answer. There was a couple actually, but we'll get to this one. And it goes like this. I'm not good at making and keeping friends needed for networking, because we were talking about association, or to check on my goals. And sometimes the loneliness is suffocating and I miss out on association because of my anxieties. How do I get past this so I can establish a network beyond just acquaintances I meet at a retreat?
It's a wonderful question. And thank you to the person who asked this question. And there are many people, so first of all, I want to say you're not alone. There are many people in this world who are in a similar situation. So it's very powerful that you were able to be open and honest in sharing that. And it will help so many others on this call and more generally. So thank you for doing so. There are two things that come to mind. One is that you should go to those who are senior to you, right? So someone that you trust who's a senior, and reveal your heart and ask for some specific advice based upon your own specific situation. That's one thing. Okay, so often when you reveal your mind to someone who is more advanced on the path, and because you need to have a bit more of an in-depth conversation, because what you're trying to understand is, why is that the case? What is it that I may be doing or not doing that is holding me back from that kind of building of relationship? Then the second thing I'd advise is get involved in some service. Get involved in some service, some activity that puts you in contact and in association with others on a regular basis. Now, many of you have seen this, actually. I'm going to ask for a show of hands. How many of you have seen, when you go to any event, especially if it's a kirtan event, how many of you, show of hands, have noticed that the devotees who do kirtan together, that they have a certain bond? Has anyone ever seen that? They have a certain bond, right? Anyone? Yeah. It's amazing, right? So we have this, in the UK, we have this 24-hour kirtan, or many of them events, and you'll see, and you can tell the group of devotees who do kirtan together, right? Because, someone's playing the madanga, someone's singing, etc. And, they'll just give little eye signals, or someone plays the madanga and they'll play a funky beat, and everyone's like that, So you can just tell they've got this kind of, the kind of synchronicity in the body language, this kind of unspoken vibe that's going on. And it's because they're all bonding together through a shared activity. Not only that, they're bonding together through a shared ecstatic or pleasurable activity. The same psychology happens when you're having a good meal together with someone, because you're all connecting through something that you all find pleasurable at the same time, or something that you all find uniting and bonding at the same time. So 2 pieces of advice. 1, go to someone senior and reveal your mind about the situation, because then you can have an in-depth conversation to really tune into the specific thing that needs to be adjusted to move forward. And the second thing is, engage in some service that brings you into that collective contact and union with other devotees, because that can be a great way to build a foundation for bonding. Okay, thank you for that question.
Okay, so moving on, we have another one. You spoke about compassion. So how can I cultivate more qualities of compassion? I find myself to be very impatient. This one speaks to me. Does Krishna show us what we're supposed to work on only through a relationship with others?
No, that's not true. So Krishna can, if we're introspective, and especially if we're humble, then the more we have humility, the more that we can look at ourselves and look at that which is good and also that which is not so good. So it's amazing. The process is so powerful that oftentimes we know the answers, right? Oftentimes, if we really look at ourselves honestly, we can think, you know what, I'm not so good at this, or you know what, I do have this tendency and I need to work on it. But of course, Krishna will also use the relationships to help, because we have blind sides. So the way to do this, to have lasting compassion in our interactions with others, is to also be compassionate about our needs in Krishna consciousness. I've been studying this for some time now, actually. So I'll give a very simple example. I've seen that when the devotees who are young people, when they grow properly and become amazing devotees in Krishna consciousness, it's because their needs as a Krishna conscious youth were taken care of properly. And because their needs as a Krishna conscious youth were taken care of, they're able to evolve and mature into a Krishna conscious adult. You see? So what you're trying to do, and this is not someone else's responsibility, it's wonderful when we do get that help and support. But again, we have to take the responsibility, because if we didn't get everything that we need and we're aware of it, as we build awareness, we should try and bring those elements. So I'll give an example. I mean, I'll be honest, my Krishna conscious youth, it was so incredible. I loved it. When I think back to being a youth in Krishna consciousness, it was incredible. Traveled around the world, so my need for adventure in Krishna consciousness as a youth, got it. Traveled around the world, learned tremendous amounts. We had association with so many advanced seniors, listened to their classes. They gave me so much insight about myself and other people. That need was fulfilled. My need for friendship, great friendships, really good friendships, people who work together, support each other, encourage each other. So it ticked all of my boxes in Krishna consciousness as a youth. So therefore I can go into the adult phase without kind of being stuck in the past, thinking, oh, but I need to have fun. Because those needs were taken care of. Now, of course, we can never turn back time. But what we can do, wherever we are in life at this time, what are my needs in Krishna consciousness? You see? And as we take care of our needs in Krishna consciousness, we're able to move forward properly in Krishna consciousness. And that's what it means to be spiritually compassionate with ourselves. And as we are spiritually compassionate with ourselves, it makes it easier to be spiritually compassionate with other people. It's so amazing. When you often meet someone who's rude, harsh, or negative, when you look behind it, you'll often see someone who's unhappy. And someone who's unhappy because their own needs, not desires, not wants, not superfluous things, not like I need an iPhone 10. I'm talking about deep, fundamental human needs. When those things are not being met consistently, and when a person isn't in a higher level of consciousness to recognize that and meet it for themselves, then it usually comes out through them lashing out on other people in a negative way. So therefore, we can see all behavior as either an expression of love or a call for love. When someone is being rude or harsh, what they're literally saying is, I'm so unhappy in my own life, and I'm so unconscious of being able to express that in a mature way, that the only way that I can signal my unhappiness is to try to make you unhappy. So that person is suffering. Even though it looks like one thing, behind the scenes, they're a suffering individual. So we have to be very conscious and very aware of what's going down. And we can understand this. When you're happy and blissful, do you go around giving people a hard time? When you're happy and blissful and fulfilled, happy and enthusiastic, do you go around making snide or rude comments about people, pulling people down? No one does that. So the way that we can develop that compassion is to start by looking at ourselves, start to build into our lives those Krishna conscious needs, you know? So for example, and if you want to get into this, there's a brilliant class that Radha Bhakti gave on leadership, right? I'm not sure where she posted it, but it was really good. And she quoted something from Leadership for an Age of Higher Consciousness, Part 2 by Bhakti Tirthamraj. And he gives a table of needs and wants, right? So someone may want fame, but what they need is appreciation, you see? You may or may not be able to be famous, but to have a sense that, you know, I'm appreciated for what I can give. And so that means you appreciate yourself and you associate in such a way that there's healthy appreciation. So you can see what people claim that they want, which is the mode of passion version. And you can just think, what's the mode of goodness version of that? So someone, for example, wants to dominate and control. What are they really looking for? Protection and security. Because if you felt secure and protected, you wouldn't go around trying to dominate and control everyone. You see? So the want is domination and control, passion. The need is protection and security, goodness. And then and the interesting thing is, the mode of ignorance thing is, it's because they're currently experiencing what? Insecurity, ignorance. So in the mode of ignorance, that element is expressed as insecurity. In the mode of goodness, it's expressed as protection and security. In the mode of passion, it's the desire to control and dominate, to be overly controlling, overly domineering. Now, there is such a thing as a healthy control. And the healthy control is like the control of a parent. They're controlling, but they're controlling because it's their service to do that, and they're doing it for the benefit of the child who needs that direction. So that's healthy, that's different, right? But you see how it works. So that's my answer to that question. Start by being compassionate with yourself, and you'll find it easier in a lasting way to have healthy compassion for other people.
Jai, thank you. This is another question. What if you feel confused about gauging qualification in devotees? Often I meet senior devotees who I have difficulty respecting as highly qualified devotees because of things I see them doing, which I consider to be offensive. Okay.
So what you should do, see, so we talk about associating, having good association, right? But there's also a subtle rule to this, and that is to associate with the good that you see in other people. So what you do is you fan the spark. So there's no one who's all bad. They'll have some good qualities and maybe some areas where they're challenged. So what you want to do, and there's some psychological research on this, right? I was preparing a seminar, so I'm doing a presentation on relationships. Actually, if anyone's interested, then you can find that on my Instagram. So it's a Zoom class tomorrow on relationships. And there's some study which I looked at, and they found that what happens in married life, or let's say in any relationship of like, you know, partner relationship, is that when the partner does good things, it's just taken for granted. But when they do anything wrong, then it gets all the attention. But the study has shown that that's actually exactly the wrong thing to do. What you want to do is when you see someone doing the right thing, you want to call that out. What you want to do is when you see people do something that you genuinely appreciate it, you want to call it out. You want to let them know. You want to thank them, show gratitude, and tell them exactly what they did that you appreciate so much. Because people are much more incentivized by that positive reinforcement. And if you do that, they will do more of that positive quality. But what we tend to do is focus on the negative. And then what happens is by focusing on the negative, people become defensive, because it's like generally the ratio of positive to negative is much more on the positive. But we just let that go. Yeah, you're doing this, you're caring, you're kind, you're supportive. Yeah, but you should be, you're my friend. But you do something wrong. Oh my God, let's make it go viral on Facebook. It's completely the wrong way. What we're meant to do is you look for the things that you genuinely appreciate in another person. You call that out, and what you will see is if you do that, those positive qualities will increase. And if you call that out, those positive qualities, because they're always the counterpart to a negative, those positive qualities will increase to such a point that they minimize the negative. You see? That's actually how it works. That's how you bring out the best in other people. So Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj communicated before he left the planet with Satyananda Maharaj. And he said to him, he said, within each and every one of us, there's a good dog and a bad dog fighting for supremacy. He said, which one will win the war? And the answer was whichever dog you feed the most. So we have the higher self, the good dog, the lower self, the bad dog. You want to feed the higher self in you and the higher self in other people, okay? So don't get bogged down by people's negative qualities. But to the extent that you can, try to encourage that which you can genuinely appreciate. These are not techniques, by the way. I hate this idea of techniques, and meaning, when I say technique, what I mean is a kind of superficial, manipulative thing. Yeah, I know, I'll say this to him and then they'll change. This is really, it's not a technique, because what you're looking for are the things that you genuinely do appreciate. And that's important, because when you say it, it will resonate with that sense of genuine appreciation, and they'll be able to feel he means it. He's not just, you're a nonsense. I know about you. I've read how to trick you into behaving properly. No. Because at some level people will pick up, no, it's a trick, or it's a technique, it's something manipulative. No, look for the things that you can genuinely appreciate. Now, the other thing, before we go on, and this is also very interesting because we teach this to leaders. You see, I have to earn the right to give you developmental feedback, because otherwise I'm like a bad boss. A bad boss is you're doing great work all the time. No one recognizes it. But when something goes wrong, suddenly everyone's shooting you down. But a good boss is, the good work you're doing, I recognize it. So what does that do? If I recognize and vocalize and communicate that I appreciate something that you're really doing, that I really appreciate, then I'm communicating to you in good times, in normal times, that I love you, I value you, I notice the good that you're doing. I acknowledge you. I appreciate those things in good times. So then when something comes up that needs to be addressed, it's now being addressed within the context of a positive relationship, rather than within the context of someone who says nothing to you except when things go bad, which means it's almost like a stranger coming up to you and saying, you do this wrong, you need to change. It's like, well, excuse me, who the hell are you? I've never seen you before. You've never spoken to me before. Now you're telling me what to do. Like, who the hell are you? So be proactive. Look for the good. right? And our scriptures talk about this, you know, the nectar seeker, right? The bee who's looking for the honey, looking for the good within others. And you know what's so amazing? And I've seen this in my own life. When you show people that you love them, when you show people that you recognize them, that you appreciate them, then what happens is you're also conveying psychological security. And one of the most amazing things is that even that hardcore person who's sometimes a bit hard to get through, when they know consistently that you're on their side, then their barriers come down. And sometimes I'll even say to you, look, between you and I, you've known me for some time. What do you think I need to work on? Right? That's what you want to get to. You want to build the trust. Yeah. And the mistake we make in our movement is we wait till the emergency. Don't do that. One of the qualities of good leadership is to be proactive, and we're all leaders in our own lives. So what we're meant to do is proactively build those relationships, especially the people that you're serving with, the people who are in your community who are in important positions. Proactively build those relationships. And then we call this relationship capital between you and another person. So when something does need to be addressed, you've already conveyed that you're on their side. And so it's like my loving brother or sister saying something to me rather than a complete stranger who I've got no relationship with. You've reminded me of one thing, so thank you for this. I meant to say this, and this is that my spiritual master made a very insightful point. He said that all of the issues in our communities could be resolved very easily if we approach the issues in the mood of family. It's not that devotee's doing something. It's like, okay, this is my older brother or older sister. This is my aunt or this is my uncle, right? Who I have a concern. So think about that. It changes the mood of how we deal with things because we're thinking these are all members of my family. So how can I deal with a family member who I love and who I have affection for, who's doing something that may be not so good for their own benefit? So that's a way to approach it. Okay. So just some thoughts on that.